Alrighty, we are live after what has been, it felt like a very long fortnight, but also a very quick fortnight in a lot of ways. How are you, Noops, or Alex, or I'm still not sure what I'm going to call you.
Whatever you want to call me, it's fine. We'll work our way around it. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Thanks to our good friend Kelly at Big Ten Wano on Twitter. Gave me some advice several months ago. I think it was in the month of February to bet Dominic Thiem to win the U.S. Open at I think I got some 22 to 1, some 28 to 1, all sorts of good numbers. Net it was 23 to 1, and I'm sad that I had to watch that. Part of me is upset that I had such a reason to sit there and suffer through it. But man, what an ending! It really did. It ended well, folks. So congratulations to anybody that had Dominic Thiem. Congratulations to our friend Kelly, and quite a good ending for me on the men's side. How about you?
Yeah, good. It was good to finish both finals with a couple of winners there. Look, both finals, and look, we'll talk about the men's final a little bit. Look, there's a lot of people who don't like best of five sets, and I feel like a 6-3, 6-2 Zverev Grand Slam championship win probably wouldn't have done the tournament justice. It's an interesting one, and I mean, I didn't have any major financial involvement in that final set tiebreak, so I can only imagine how yourself and Callie and all the other people who are on Thiem and who have been on Thiem for months and months would have felt throughout all of that. But look, it's good reward for effort for Thiem who's been the closest, I guess, to breaking through against the likes of Djokovic, Federer, and Nadal over the last couple of years. Presents a lot of questions, I think, for Alexander Zverev, because you can look at it. There's two sides to the story, I think, with him. The first one is obviously, you're up 2-0 in a break. You can't consolidate the break and go on with it from there. We saw the double faults and we saw the issues that cropped up over the course of the next couple of sets. Served through it again in the fifth. Thiem could barely walk through the last 10 minutes. But then on the other side, you look at him and he's still in his early 20s. He still has a lot of deficiencies in his game that he can improve. And he still came within a couple of points of winning a Grand Slam. So he's kind of at a crossroads at the moment, I think. It could go one of two ways. We could either see a real improvement and acknowledgement that he is close, but also it could go the other way for a small period of time, and it'll be interesting to see how he responds at the French Open.
Yeah, it's you got to really think that Zverev is really worried about himself. I mean, I'm looking here right now trying to figure out. I'm trying to remember where he was actually serving when he lost the third set. But anyway, just a really tough match for him to come out to look so good for those first two sets, for Thiem to look really bad. Somehow then he turns it around. Zverev starts to get into all his bad habits of double faulting and not being aggressive, hitting softer shots, maybe going to the net a little too early. You started to see things like that. Thiem wins the next two sets pretty soundly, actually. I thought he hit some nice shots. We saw some good tennis and Thiem played well. But as the third set went longer and longer, it was very clear that Thiem was either injured or cramping. I would say cramping. That's kind of what it looked like to me. He had a really quick Yastrzemski at one point. It was fairly late in the third set, but as he was sitting on a changeover, had a doctor come over and give him a little rub there for a second. But you could see clearly, I mean, visually you could watch him limping around, moving his legs, cringing. He did not sit down on any changeovers during the tiebreak. I was joking in one of our chats with our friends that he was going to do the Osaka celebration, but not by choice. So as Zverev, I think that how he plays the rest of this year, how he comes back next year and plays, will say a lot about him and his future. Because, like you said, what we saw was a very young player, with a lot of holes in his game, not necessarily play his best tennis, but make it all the way to the finals to have a real chance to win. That could be a positive, that could be a negative. So we'll see how it goes. It seemed in the after-match press conference, it seemed while he was playing that this might immediately be more of a negative, but we'll see. I think this is a real decision moment in his career.
It will be interesting to see. Yeah, I think particularly the French Open and how he goes in the early rounds there. Now, it would, I need to obviously go back 24 hours, and I do have one third of the Net Worth pod who covers WTA tennis in a lot of detail, more detail than most. What were your thoughts on the final yesterday between Azarenka and Osaka?
It's fantastic tennis. one of the things that I would say, if you're anybody to compare men's versus women's tennis, and you're trying to tell me that men's tennis is better, you can go to hell. The U.S. Open was absolutely spectacular for the women's side. I think that if you were to put up the best matches from both sides, almost all of them would be on the women's side. The women's final was spectacular. Azarenka played really well, put just about as much pressure on Osaka as you could see. But you got a chance to watch a young athlete, a young woman, sit and pull herself together. You saw it on court. She took time to meditate. She took breaks. You could watch her breathe and really work herself through what she was going on, and then just turn things around. I mean, one of the more incredible performances we've seen. This is arguably one of the better starts to any career that you've probably had from a women's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
She's now 3-3. She has been in 3 Grand Slam finals or major finals, and she's won all 3 of them. And with adversity too. I mean, the Serena Williams one, I think she won that one pretty comfortably, but there was a little adversity in the other 2. So it's not, she's just coming in and she hasn't been tested. I thought that she had a great tournament. She played a great match. It was really fun. There was a lot of back and forth. Azarenka looked really good and played her best. I thought, it was really good. And, I'd like to get your thoughts. What did you see from Osaka? Does she have a chance to really be great?
Yeah, I mean, when we look at Osaka, and you made a good point there, going back to the fact that she is 3 from 3 in Grand Slam finals. If you rewind back to, I think it was that first that Grand Slam final she had in Melbourne, was it against Kvitova, where she was in complete control of that match, and then things really got away from her, and I think she was almost in tears. I think at the end of the second set before the decider, before bouncing back and taking the title. The confidence that she must have gained from that particular moment to be able to then continue on and looking across the last fortnight in particular as well. She was down 1-2 love 40 against Kostyuk and just didn't look phased by the moment at all and didn't lose another game from that point. She found herself in a third set against Jennifer Brady in the semi-final, and while she did drop the second set, there was never really a moment in that match that she was significantly behind or trailing, and she was able to keep control of that situation. It was the first time, I think, looking at that final against Azarenka, she knew that something had to change and she needed to step up. We talked a lot about Azarenka's first serve percentage in the semi-final against Serena Williams, where she was able to really up that through sets 2 and 3, and it gave her a lot of control through a number of key points. Azarenka put 94% of first serves into play in the first set of that final against Osaka, and that dropped progressively as the match wore on. And as that happened, Osaka came further and further back into the match and was able to take control. I would have loved to have seen Azarenka hold, I think it was for 4-all in that third set, just to see what would happen. But it was credit to Osaka to be able to finish it off the way she had. And look, I don't think I'd really be wanting to oppose Osaka in any capacity if she finds herself in third sets in the near future.
Yeah, we talked about a little bit of pre-show. What I'm waiting for now to see that if Osaka really can be the great player that she might be is what happens when she loses one of these. Like I said, she's been in 3, she's won all 3. Maybe she's Michael Jordan. Maybe she just wins them all forever, and that would be really, really great. But I'm not willing to say that yet. So let's see what happens, after she loses one, after she has some adversity, and she really loses a final against a big player in a big spot. I continue to wait for a chance for her to play against Bianca Andreescu in a slam final on hard courts. I think that's going to be really great. But until that happens, nothing but nice stuff for me from her. Congratulations. It was a great tournament. Azarenka looked really good. I mean, she just kind of, I think, fell apart from a physical standpoint. She started to look tired. You could see on her serve, she started to hit more balls into the net as opposed to over the net. She wasn't moving quite as well as she had been. So, obviously that's tough for her coming back off the long break. So I think that she'll get better and better as, she continues to get back in form. But, good tournament for her overall, and it was just a lot of fun. Anybody else stick out from you on the women's side?
I think that, the main ones are obviously, we got to see probably the 4 best informed players make it through to the semi-finals, which we don't always see, but it was great to see. I think competitive tennis across the whole fortnight, and even across the 3 weeks in the bubble with the Western and Southern Open as well. I think you have to give credit to the USTA for actually getting everything done with only one major scare, and obviously that involves getting up there and playing cards, which I'm sure won't be on the agenda for many people in Rome this week. But look, their ability to kind of get the job done under a fair amount of adversity, a fair amount of pressure, and that's before you add in the PTPA drama, I guess, that came on the weekend before the Grand Slam started. To be able to get through this and tick it off and say, look, we've done this. This is kind of the way to do it at the moment. And in a way, it's a little bit of a blueprint, which the French Tennis Federation doesn't seem to be following at all with their plans for a couple of weeks' time. But they've done pretty well to get through it without any significant drama, and they're probably breathing a little bit of a sigh of relief now that everyone's heading off to Europe.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, congratulations. It was really well done. One of the things that we talked about a lot amongst ourselves, amongst friends, is our concern and frankly, the strategy of our players going to be forced to pick the U.S. Open or the French Open. That was not the case. We have a bunch of players that are in the U.S. Open. They're all going to go over to France and play there. Now, we'll see how things develop and how that works with fans and all that good stuff. Again, I'm going to try to be optimistic and fingers crossed it's not a problem until it is. But congratulations, U.S. Open went very well. Really excited that all these players now have a chance to go over to Europe, have some time to prep, even play another tournament before they jump in. So it's great that, again, that they weren't forced to make that choice.
And in true 2020 fashion, we go straight from a Grand Slam into a Masters 1000 and a pretty big WTA tournament as well over in Rome.
What kind of premiere is it? Do you know? I don't. There's like 6 kind of premieres, isn't there?
Yeah, it's not a mandatory, but it's it's relatively high in terms of there's a significant amount of prize money on the line. That much I know from having looked at the draw earlier. Now, what we thought we might do for today is, let me just get rid of the US Open review banner because that's going to go away. But we're going to do a little bit of a bracket discussion of the women's draw, first of all, from Rome. So we'll have a little bit of a chat through each of the quarters and try and kind of map out a bit of a bracket of what could unfold over the next week for the women's tournament. We'll have a bit of a chat through some of the first round matches because the odds are up there. I know that you've got a couple of plays already up, I think, posted on Twitter. So we'll chat through those, and then I'll progressively, my next 6 hours is basically set up to write about previews for day one or round one from Rome. So I'll be getting stuck into that after we finish up here. But you'll get a little bit of an idea of where I'm heading, I think, with a couple of plays. So how about we start, once I share this screen up. We've got the first quarter of the Rome draw. So top four seeds, top 8 seeds have a bye in the first round. I think if we have a little bit of a look through here. So the first quarter has Petra Martic at the 8th seed, and we have Simona Halep at the top. So they both have a bye. But maybe if we just head through match by match here to start. So we'll skip. So Halep is through till kind of the middle of the week.
And just before we do, by the way, I want to give a shout out to the website we're using. I don't know if a lot of people know this exists, tennisdrawchallenge.com. It is a website that allows you to fill out tennis brackets. If you're from the United States, it basically works like any website that lets you pick a March Madness bracket, but they do it for every major tennis tournament. It's a really great website. It's a tool that I use, that I know that Spread and Jorge use every week to help us figure out our outrights, and it's fun. You can set up little groups and do contests with your friends. So thank you to whoever is doing Tennis Draw Challenge. Hopefully you're watching. We appreciate your work.
That we do. Now, first up, so you'll notice that a fair Italian theme through here with a couple of wild cards as well. Sevastova versus Paolini, which, look, had you asked me probably 2 months ago where I thought my opinion lay with this one, it might have been a little bit different to what we're seeing now. But what are your thoughts on this match? Is there any particular player that stands out here that you want to side with?
This is a dog or pass situation for me, and I'm going to pass on the dog. Sevastova hasn't looked very well, but this is her surface. She tends to play very well here. She has a good enough serve that holds up on the dirt. She has enough power on her forehand and backhand to hit winners here, and she's smart and moves well. I think that she should win this match if she's playing well. It could be a fun one to watch live, and if she looks a little tough, maybe jump on Paolini. But at the pricing I see right now, I'm going to pass, and I'm happy to take Sevastova to win from a bracket perspective.
I tend to agree with that one, I think, at the moment, and we'll just pop Sevastova in there. I don't think there's any value in her at the minus or, looking at the games total over or under. Paolini has had a couple of losses on clay over the last couple of weeks, but he did push Elise Mertens. I think it was in the second tournament back, took her to 3 sets and went 2 hours 45 with her in that one. I think it was in Prague. So look, there's potential there in Paolini, and looking through her exhibition run as well, she's had a couple of wins from some phenomenal deficits through sets 2 and 3. So look, she isn't going to give this up easily to Savasova, but look, I'm not seeing a lot of value in the price there at the moment, and there isn't a recent meeting, I guess, between the two that we can kind of use to gauge things a little bit. Whereas in the next match, I tried to do a little bit of a segue there, but we have a rematch of a fixture that we saw, I think it was in Palermo, when the tour restarted between Giorgi and Yastremska. That day, I think Yastremska had a couple of match points in the second set before Giorgi was able to take that and go ahead and win the third set. Anything standing out to you here?
I've actually already bet Giorgi here. This opened at like plus 145. I was able to grab a little bit of that opener. I see it's still floating around. Let me see what the current price is. I think it's plus 120. It was earlier today. Yep, still sitting at plus 120. I still like it at that number. I think that given concerns about Yastremska's body, her knee's been bothering her. I think she either had an ankle or a shoulder. With her, again, it's always tough to know if she's actually taking an MTO or just doing a Yastremska. So a little tough there, but I don't feel great about her body, and that she hasn't played much on clay really, and Giorgi frankly already beat her once. So I have all the reasons in the world to like Giorgi here, and I grabbed her at a nice underdog number.
Yeah, I'd probably be leaning with Giorgi here as well at the prices. I mean, Yastremska, you've got everything that you've just perfectly analysed there, plus the fact that she doesn't have a coach anymore.
Right, that's true. We skipped the coach report. I forgot that. I knew there was something on my list.
There's so much going on with her at the moment that we forgot the fact that she has parted ways with her coach. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But look, it could really go one of two ways here for Yastremska. She could play with a lot more freedom and control, and know that she's not going to have a coach come out and tweet congratulatory statements to her opposition at the end of the day, or things are going to really unravel for the next couple of weeks, which is a really important stage of the year for her coming into Roland Garros. I tend to agree with you, and I think there's probably a little bit of value in the price of Giorgi, and from a bracket perspective, I think we should maybe send her through to the next round.
I like it. Let's go for it. The little underdog there. Anybody else filling out the bracket? Probably a lot of people clicking Giorgi before they realize. I'm sorry, clicking Yastremska before they think. So that could be a good one for us. A little game theory action there.
Definitely. And look, the very similar conditions to when they last met. Also in Italy a couple of weeks ago. I think that was in the first week of August there. So, not too much water has gone under the bridge. Both have gone over to the US and come back. There's not too much to take, I guess, from either players in the interim. Now, one of the young Americans who was a semi-finalist from Roland Garros last year, Amanda Anisimova, coming up against Donna Vekic, who I'm struggling to get a read on. I don't know about you, but I just don't know where she fits at the moment amongst the top players.
This could be one of the best matches of the entire tournament, or it could be one of the worst. It's so hard to put your finger on what either one of these women are going to do. Anisimova continues to struggle physically, just really has not had a great restart. Donna Vekic continues to be Donna Vekic, all the talent in the world, and just none of the consistency. So from a match-to-match betting perspective, this is a huge stay away from me. I'm happy to let you pick whoever you want from a bracket perspective. We could even flip a coin if you want.
I mean, looking at the current odds, we wouldn't be the only ones flipping a coin at the moment.
Right.
Oh, look, it's tricky because we haven't. I mean, Anisimova played a couple of those like Charleston clay exhibitions, which I'm not really going to count in any capacity. The only advantage, I guess, for Vekic is that she did play in Italy a couple of weeks ago and got a couple of clay matches under her belt.
Just one.
Haven't seen. Two?
I'm sorry, two. She beat Ruse and then lost to Cacciaretto. Sorry.
So, look, that's about the only advantage that I can see here for Vekic. Both were pretty poor in terms of their performances at the US Open. I mean, Vekic, she did lose to Poronkova, who did kind of frank that form by being able to make her way through to the quarterfinals. But if I had to pick, I'll give you a bit of a spoiler update. I will not be writing about this match later. I would probably lean towards Dara Vekic to make her way through.
Go for it. Love it.
Now, this is one of the more...
I don't have an opinion, but go for it. Yeah, sorry.
This is one of the more interesting ones. Elena Rybakina against Ekaterina Alexandrova.
They played once already this year, I believe, not twice.
Yeah. It was a couple of weeks ago, wasn't it?
It was. It was on hard courts. I believe it was in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Well, not Cincinnati, New York, but Cincinnati.
Cincinnati. So Alexandrova's got the head-to-head advantage 2-0. I think they also met in the Shenzhen or somewhere in that.
Yeah, Shenzhen early this year.
So, look, really tricky one because Alexandrova has the head-to-head advantage, but both of them were on hard courts. We've probably seen more on clay from Rybakina over the last 12 to 18 months. Rybakina, her match against Alexandrova, I think from memory, was the first match back for Rybakina from after the tour was suspended, and she did make it pretty clear that she spent a lot of her time quarantined in her apartment and wasn't able to train. She came pretty close to knocking off Alexandrova off not a lot of tennis in that Western and Southern Open match. You switch over now to the clay, which is probably more favourable for her, and
right.
I'm looking at that price of Rybakina, and I'm thinking that's a little bit of value.
I'm not sure if in the individual match I'm ready to bet Rybakina because I just worry about her form a little bit. I think if I had to pick a winner from a bracket perspective, for me, this is clearly Rybakina. This is a much better surface for her. When I look at a lot of the results for both of them, Rybakina has been much better on the dirt. So happy to take her from a bracket perspective. I'm going to pass on this particular match. I mean, if she comes out and wins this and looks good, I'm going to be on her the rest of the way.
And I think that's a really important spot here, I think, in this draw. I mean, we are still discussing the Halep quarter, but, Rybakina, if she could make her way through this little section here and meet Halep, she does. She pushed her pretty close. I think it was in Doha earlier in the year on hard quarter. We'll have confidence that she can match the game of Halep at some point. But yeah, because it's one of those ones where you look at Rybakina and you go, you consider that form before the tour was suspended, and we're not quite back there yet. I don't think it'll take too long for her to get back, but I think looking at the moment of the prices, I think it's around that $70 mark, or what does that get you at -140, I think, in your odds speak.
Yeah, If you told me that she was in form, I would love that number. But like I said, I'm going to wait. So if you're willing to jump in, I mean, and that, frankly, people, that's how you get value. It's being willing to take that kind of first step and jump in a little bit beforehand. So I don't think that that's a bad idea. I'm just not ready to do that yet.
Alrighty, but yeah, for the purposes of the bracket, we'll use Rybakina to move forward here. I think
that's an easy choice for me.
Now on to the next match. Although the flags are a little bit off, but we'll continue on. Bouzkova against Tomljanovic. Interesting match. These two, I think, have played once before at the US Open last year, and Tomljanovic was able to get the win that day after losing the first set, I think, quite convincingly. Neither are particularly strong, I guess, if we're looking at their play form overall. Do you have any particular take on this match at the current odds, which I will just have a quick look at here? What have we got?
This is a match where, when I first looked at it, I was like, ooh, that's a nice price on Bouzkova. And as I started to pick it apart a little bit, look at some of the history, start to really think about her performance on clay, she has been terrible on clay. I know that you have more of a technical understanding of tennis, and I'd be curious if there was anything that you could think about maybe in her game or the way she plays that maybe just translates well on hards but doesn't quite work on clay. For me, it may just be a power thing. So, I wanted to bet Bouzkova. As I started to look more, I actually leaned towards Tomljanovic, but she hasn't played a good match in months. So this is another pass for me. I picked Tomljanovic from a bracket perspective, but now's your opportunity to try to talk me into Bouzkova.
I don't think I can talk you into Bouzkova. I'd be going with Tomljanovic as well, just because, and just going back to your comment there about the Bouzkova's record on clay, I just don't think, as you said, I don't think the power's there. I think she's too reliant on opposition flaws and poor moments, and that's really, when you can't hit through your opponent, you're so heavily reliant on them to slip up or have loose moments within a match, and I just don't see at that price being a particular value. But also, looking at this particular matchup, I don't think I don't think the winner of the tournament's coming out of this particular matchup, so I don't think this will influence us too much from a bracket standpoint. But I'd agree and probably go Tomljanovic. And looking at the price, she's a slight underdog at the moment. I probably need to do a little bit more digging into that one. I think I certainly won't be playing Gliskova, but maybe look at a play on Tomljanovic in some capacity. Yeah, it's probably a match that'll get lost amongst a lot of other matches today, but it'll be interesting to see what unfolds there. The next match, though, is something that...
Before we jump forward, though, I saw a comment from our buddy Gonza there. He likes the over in Rybakina Alexandrova. I didn't see what the number was there. If it's 21, definitely grab that. 21.5 is probably okay still, too, but I think that's a good look. So I just wanted to touch on that, but go ahead.
I agree, and look, it's something that's worth looking at, particularly in Alexandrova matches, because she can bring her best and her worst tennis in pretty quick succession. So she is one of those players who, yes, may drop a first set, but can come out looking really strong in the second set. I'm just trying to see if we can grab the over-under prices. I've got them here.
I'm seeing 20 run right now. It's a pretty expensive 21. But I'm looking at a book that generally runs those numbers up a little bit, so I'm going to try to pull up some.
Yeah,
but I think you can get a 21 at maybe like minus 115 or 1.87.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing here as well. So look, not the worst. I probably, if I had to pick over or under, I would go over there, and I think that's partly due to how closely matched those two players are as well. Thank you for the comment, and for anyone else, feel free to jump in and give your picks or give your thoughts on any particular matches as we're going along as well. That's why we do this and why we're jumping on live, to be able to kind of start a conversation and get people thinking about this tournament, albeit a couple of hours after the US Open is finished. Gliskova versus Pedersen.
I think this one, from a bracket perspective, is pretty easy. I don't see how Pedersen wins this. And from a betting perspective, I've actually laid the games with Putintseva. I saw a -4 when I went in there earlier and actually sold half a game to 4.5 at plus 106 or 2.06. I think that if Putintseva wins this match, she covers 4.5 pretty easily. I think that, and again, maybe Pedersen's healthy all of a sudden and there's some sort of information that I don't have. I'm willing to lose a little bit of money on trusting that that's not a thing. So I've actually, in this match, got Putintseva -4.5 games at 2.06.
Yeah, look, I'd be heading down that path too, and I probably will be heading down that path a little bit later this afternoon. Pedersen's only win last week was against Gasparian, who was injured, then lost, I think, pretty convincingly to Tig, who went on to obviously win the tournament, but it was a very one-sided match. I don't think she's hitting it well enough to be able to get through Putintseva comfortably. The only question mark, I guess, for Julia is the quick turnaround from making the quarterfinals in New York and then flying over. I'm probably going to head down that Putintseva and taking the minus games there as well. But I think it's a comfortable pick from the bracket selection to pop there into the second round to face Petra Martic, which will be an interesting match if that were to unfold. So do we want to keep going with this first quarter, or shall we continue on with the round one matches and keep heading down?
It's up to you. Happy to blast through the first round, or maybe we can finish the first quarter and talk about some outrights to mix it up a little bit. How are you feeling?
Yeah, well, let's keep heading down. We'll come down here. So this one's a bit of an interesting little section and pocket of the draw. Not a lot of significant clay form is probably the best way to describe parts of it. Sofia Kenin gets the bye as the 3 seed, but look, we've got that interesting match here in terms of who will face the winner of Victoria Azarenka and Venus Williams. Now, I have a play on this particular match from yesterday. Have you gone down a similar path, or what are your thoughts on this particular match?
My thoughts on this particular match is I'm not willing to bet either of these women. Azarenka coming off as much tennis as she's played in the last 2 years, making a surface change. Venus Williams, is she 40 years old yet? I think she is, making a surface change. I'm happy to pass on this altogether. And frankly, I think there's a chance that Azarenka shows up and maybe even just withdraws to get like a walkover or something goofy like that. I picked Venus Williams in my bracket just simply because I think that if we have the match, Venus has a chance to win simply because Azarenka will be kind of beat up. But also because there's part of me that thinks Azarenka might just bail and we'll get somebody that Venus can beat up on.
Yeah, I've gone for Venus for 1.5 units here at over $2.50, just purely on the situation. I mean, it's worth remembering Venus did also beat Azarenka in Lexington a couple of weeks ago before this good run from Azarenka. Playing 3 consecutive weeks on tour is tricky. I think backing that up,
especially with the change. She's making the big west to east trip,
Yeah.
right? She's coming from New York. She's going 6 hours ahead, I think, maybe 7.
And add into that I guess how emotionally draining it would also be to have not only reached the Grand Slam final, but to have lost it as well in the way that she did. To then back up in a 4th week on a different continent, on a different surface, I'm happy to go against it at the price. So I'm happy, and from a bracket perspective, I'm happy to send Venus through here. Again, I don't think either of these two are going to be going deep into this tournament. So I don't think it's going to impact our bracket too much. And it's a great little spot, I think, in the bracket for Sofia Kenin, which we can get back to a little bit later. This one, Daria Kasatkina against Vera Zvonareva. I've tossed and turned on this one a little bit.
Really? You spent more than 2 seconds thinking about this?
I did.
Good for you.
Do you want to know why?
Sure. Because, I mean, I looked at this, I went, no. Then I looked at the price and I went, no. And I thought maybe an under, and then I went, no. So it was maybe longer than a second. It was probably 30 whole seconds. But go ahead. What do you got for the people?
I'm pretty keen on Kasatkina.
Really?
And particularly, looking potentially at that games price as well. We talk a lot about, I know Vera Zvonareva did lose early in the US Open, but she did win the women's doubles final. So it was only played yesterday, I think it was. So she's got a quick turnaround here as well to get from New York to Rome, to a surface that she's not as comfortable on, against Kasatkina, who's come off a couple of really, really solid performances in qualifying. I'm looking at that price, I'm looking at the games, and I'm thinking there's going to be a pretty significant play there for me.
I think it is Kasatkina or pass.
Mm-hmm.
It's another one of those matches again. I think we talked about this when we started the season. It's sort of going back to that idea that we've got a lot of players that haven't played in a while. We've got a lot of players that haven't played on the surface. So I always tend to be more cautious in weeks like this. But again, like I mentioned earlier, there is chances for value here. And I think you're right. If I had to pick a side, if somebody made me bet the match, it'd be Kasatkina.
I think when you look back through, and I'm looking back through Zvonareva's clay record as well over the last couple of years, she has a 3-set win over Potapova, a straight set win over Tatiana Maria, but there's a lot of losses mixed in amongst that, including straight.
Yeah, the numbers are all Kasatkina. There's nobody that models or does any sort of data work that could make a reasonable case for anybody but Kasatkina here.
And I think confidence is such a big thing for Kasatkina, and I think to only lose 5 games through 4 sets, I know it was arguably the weakest draw through that qualification phase there.
You might have talked me into this, by the way. I'm going to think about
this. I very rarely say this, but I think there will be a significant play on Kasatkina in this capacity.
So what do you think about... All right, so the spread on Kasatkina is -3. Are you thinking -3? What do you think about maybe selling some games here, doing something like that? So let me see for alt spreads. I'm on a book where the alt spreads tend to be a little more expensive. I don't know if you have Unibet up in front of you, but if you want to open that while I run through some of the numbers I'm seeing here, you'd have to go to -4 to get +110, 4.5 +125. I might like -4 +110. I don't think that's the worst bet in the world. I guess it just comes down to, well, I wonder at that point, it's actually even better just to bet Kasatkina 2-0, because if she loses a set, you could be in a ton of trouble with that number. Because if she loses, it's 6-1, 6-2. So I guess, sorry, and maybe I cut you off a little bit. What were you thinking of attacking it with the -3, the money line?
I was looking at, it might just be a case of a significant play at the -3.5. I think I need to probably look into it a little bit more, but I think confidence is such a big thing for her. I actually don't really care about the strength of the opponents in the last few matches. As I said, Zvonareva was in New York a couple of days ago playing in the women's doubles final, so she hasn't really had a chance to acclimatise coming back over to Europe. I wouldn't mind the -4.5. I might go searching for a little bit more as well. It is a little bit tricky with Kasatkina because the third isn't the strongest, but losing 5 games through 4 sets here in Rome is pretty solid form, and she's back on her most comfortable surface. So, look, it'll be it's going to be interesting. I probably need to have a little bit more of a look at it, and I'd probably be more inclined to take a -4 if we can get close to plus money there than looking at taking a -3 at relatively reduced odds. If I can get a decent -3.5 at the time of writing, then I'd probably go and make a fairly significant play on that one. I think if you were to lose a tight set, that's probably still. I'd rather be going with that 3.5 than looking at a total going under. I think in this capacity, particularly around that 3.5 mark. If it was 4.5, I'd maybe explore it a little bit more, but I think that looks like a chance to make a significant play there. So watch this space later this afternoon, I think, for me. But I'm happy to put Kasatkina through as part of this bracket, which I've already done there.
Definitely. I think Kasatkina is clearly the bracket choice, like you said.
Siniakova versus Angelique Kerber.
You look at the price. Yeah, you look at the price. I'm generally a Siniakova as a dog or pass kind of person. Siniakova has been terrible, so it's really hard to trust her, and I just don't like that price. At the same time, I don't know if Kerber's carrying any sort of injury or something like that, but I thought Jorge or somebody else might have mentioned that she maybe had an ankle or something. But either way, it's a surface change for her. I think she's the clear pick to win this match, but I'm struggling to find a way to attack it. Maybe like a Kerber 2-0, but I don't feel great about that.
Yeah, look, I'm probably leaning towards seeing this one out. I think there is a little bit of an unknown there with I think Kerber did roll her ankle, was it late against Lee in the third round, and then lost to Brady pretty convincingly in the fourth round of the US Open. Transitioning back over to the play, I mean, Siniakova has been, as you said, it hasn't been a great period for her. She did play, obviously, a lot of clay tennis through the Czech exhibitions during the tour suspension. It's hard to make a case for her here. Because she lost to Zidansek, I think, in her last play match, which was in Prague. And that was, I think it was, look, 6-love in the third set. It might be one of those ones that maybe look for a play for maybe Siniakova can have a burst here somewhere against Kerber, but Kerber's able to kind of wind her down into a 2-1 win. But look, I'm not seeing a lot of value at the odds that we have at present. And are you happy for me to pop Kerber as going through in the bracket?
Definitely.
Alrighty. I think I'm just going to completely avoid the next one. Garbiñe Muguruza against Sloane Stephens. But I will.
Do we have a coin? We should really have a coin the next time we do this.
Yeah, I should have brought one. That being said, I know I joke and said that about the coin flip, I think, for this match as well. But Sloane Stephens is at $2.50 or plus 150 or above. Muguruza looks to be nowhere near her best in New York, coming off her injury. There is a small part of me that is maybe considering Sloane just because of the price, but I'm not. As soon as the stream finishes, I'm not going to be jumping to go and write about this match.
No,
not at all.
Well, this is again. We start to sound like kind of a broken record, I think, at this point. But another match where you just look at it. God, not even with your money would I bet this.
Nope. I don't even know. Who are we sending through in the bracket?
I think I picked Muguruza. I don't know. I'm happy. Go ahead. Pick Sloane. Go for it.
Let's spice things up a little bit. We'll throw an underdog in there.
Ooh, let's do it, baby.
Now, is this another Lexington clash replay? Jabeur versus Goff? I feel like I
believe it is. I believe it is.
Transition. We've changed continent. We've changed surface. On Jabeur, very heavy favorite here, about the -200 or $1.50 mark. I mean, we just haven't seen a lot, I guess, on clay from Coco, have we, at this stage of her career?
This is another match where I think you have to take Jabeur because simply, like you said, we really don't know what Coco looks like on clay, and she's not coming in spectacular form either. it's tough because again, the same criticism we have for Coco, we have with Jabeur. There's not a lot of really great results for her either on clay. So this is one where again, if I had to bet it, I'd probably take Jabeur. I don't feel great about it. From a bracket perspective, I think we take Jabeur. But can you make a strong case for Coco?
Not at the moment. I think a bit like you, it's kind of Jabeur or nothing in this instance. Just because there's just not enough exposed clay form, I think, for Coco to be able to make a solid play there. Look, I'm going to send Jabeur through from a bracket standpoint, but again, not a significant confidence play there, and I don't feel like that. Again, I don't feel like this little match here is going to impact the bracket too much moving forward. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that.
Alrighty. We just had a question just from Alex around will we be doing the men's draw. Time permitting, yes, we might fly through that one a little bit quicker in some instances, but that is the intention, I think, here. I think we're making pretty good time so far, so we'll keep on moving to another interesting match here against Aguirre and Cocciaretto. Another wild card who's shown some pretty solid form and play over the last month or so against another player who showed some pretty solid form and play before the US Open. Do you have a particular side or play on this match?
I like Cocciaretto here, and from an outright perspective, I think one of the best prices this week. It's kind of a hold your nose and take it price. I don't necessarily think she can win the tournament, but she's 500 to 1 at Unibet. She's 500 to 1 at DraftKings. So take a look at your books. There's some really, really big numbers out here on her, and I think she is a very navigable part of the draw. I think that she's a good clay player. I think that she's in a little bit of form. And I really like that number. So, I'm not too worried about her against Begu. Begu will make her work, but I think she's a chance to win that. Konta, again, maybe some injury concerns there. It'll be her first match on clay. And then you look at a Jabeur, maybe Muguruza. It's just a number that I really like from an outright perspective. But on the individual match, I think that I'll maybe just leave that alone.
Yeah, that's fair. I think Cocciaretto, she has looked pretty solid over the last month. A couple of losses. I think the loss to Martinkova wasn't fantastic in Istanbul qualifying last week. But look, when you look at Bagu as well, she did go over to New York, had that loss straight away to Petra Kvitova. Going back before that, she did have this weird, impressive run to the semi-finals in Prague, but I think that was a little bit overrated, I guess, when you go back and look through the draw. I think Sevastova was really poor.
Oh, I just realized Cocciaretto's the dog. I thought Cocciaretto was favored. I would have bet Cocciaretto. Yeah, I would have bet Cocciaretto. I'm going to do that right now.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. When you go back through Bagu's run there, I think she beat Sevastova.
Woohoo, plus 146. For anybody with Bet Online. Hold on, let me just double check and make sure it's not better at Bookmaker, because the folks at Bookmaker also like to give us some gifts. Plus 133 there. They've caught up. Yes, the folks at Bet Online are behind. Cocciaretto plus 146. Please and thank you.
Everybody wins. And I think, like I said, Bagu, she did make the semifinals of Prague, but on that run, she beat Sevastova, who played absolutely terribly. She just beat, I think it was Kung, just beat Saruga Tormov in a weird rain-affected match that was on and off, and then lost to Halep in the semi-finals. So, look, it's not the best form in this. I'd probably tend to agree, and I'll probably be making a plan for Cocciaretto as well. Obviously, you can do this. You can do it right now. I need to try and find a way off to go and write a preview and get that.
I know. You have to write a preview. I hope the price stays around for you. But if she's still a dog, I think I like her plus anything in this match. I think that I'd make her maybe a small favorite, minus 115, minus 120. So plus any number.
Look at us branching out here, picking some underdogs here in our bracket.
You got to take underdogs.
That is the top half done. I think, the first quarter done for the bracket. We'll move on to the second quarter here, which is Kiki Burton's. No, wait, hang on. I've doubled myself up here. What did you
do? I don't know. What did you do? Okay, Kiki Burton should be the top of the third.
Yeah, we're halfway. Okay. Interesting
Because
match.
you skip Konta because she's got a bye. Yep, we're good. We're good.
Yeah. Alrighty. Kiki Burtons has the bye, so she moves through to the second round. Now, this is a really interesting match in my mind.
This should be super fun.
Ivana versus Herzog. I don't know if you saw Herzog's little meltdown in Istanbul. Did you catch that one?
I missed that one, but she is a great meltdown player. When she goes down hard.
I'll send you the link afterwards. If you have a look at her racket tap handshake at the end of her match with Badosa, she does a bit of the air swing underneath because they had some words all the way through, and I think there might have been even some flipping of the bird and a few other little things just to throw people off. I think
like
the match. That was quite spiteful, but she has a really tricky match here, I think, against one of the young up-and-coming players who look really good in qualifying in Yuvan.
I'm happy to pick either player here. I think in my bracket I picked Herzog because it was just qualifier earlier, not Yuvan. I think the more interesting discussion is whoever wins this versus Kiki Burton. So maybe we'll put a pin in that. And who do you think wins this match? Again, I picked Herzog because I thought it was just any qualifier. But going by and looking at Yuvan, I'm happy to pick her.
I think I'm going to go with Yuvan. I think Herzog.
I like it. I just changed my own.
A lot of her recent play, or when I say recent, I mean over the last 18 months, a lot of that comes through that, was it Lugano or that Swiss tournament? I think she won, but didn't really face a lot of opposition across the tournament. I think Yuvan has the ability to kind of throw. I don't think Herzog is aggressive enough, and I think Yuvan will be able to kind of take control of this match a little bit. I think she looked great through qualifying, albeit again against opposition that wasn't fantastic on play. But looking at the price, it looks like it's a coin flip odds at the moment for these two, so I'm happy to go with Yuvan there for the purposes of the bracket. Moving to the next match here, another interesting match. There's some really interesting first rounders here in terms of play form. We've got
this quarter is really fun. The third quarter is probably the best quarter.
Any leans here? I mean, looking at it overall, we've got Swiatek, who's looked pretty good on clay over the last 18 months against the Rus, who absolutely dominated her way through qualifying here.
I've got Swiatek on a parlay. I've got her picked in the bracket. I think that she's the better player here. I'm seeing her money line sitting right around -170. And I think that's a little cheap. I would make it closer to -200 or 1.5. Maybe not quite that much, so maybe like -180, or I think that's like 1.55, something in that range. I like Swiatek. I think she wins the match. I think it's a good parlay piece. Rus is a fighter. She likes playing on clay, so I'm not going to try to do anything clever here from a spread perspective, but happy to pick her and happy to use her as a parlay piece.
Yeah, I'd probably be leaning it. And looking at the prices, the odds are probably about right there. Swiatek is a deserving favourite. You maybe make a case that Rus can make a little run of it here at some capacity and push it towards an over. But I think I'm happy at the moment to put Swiatek through to the next round in this one, which will be a really interesting spot, I guess. We've got Vondrousova who made the Roland Garros final last year. She hasn't shown a lot to us over 2020 so far. She gets the Naomi Osaka first round joy of Masaki Doi, who pushed Osaka early at the US Open. Are you just leaning towards Vondrousova here, or do you think there's going to be a twist in the tail?
I picked Vondrousova in my bracket. I'm not going to bet on it. I am sick of Marketa Vondrousova. She's cost me enough money this year. I just think she has a tough draw, so I think she'll win this match, but I don't think she's going to make a deep run. I mean, if she does make a deep run, right, we're looking at she'll beat Doi. I think that's not too much of a problem. But then it's Swiatek. Then it's Burtons, maybe Yuvan, maybe Herzog there. We get to the bottom section. There's a lot of great names there. When we get to the fourth quarter, there's some good names there. So I think she just has a brutal draw. So from that right perspective, I've crossed her off. But for this match, I've got her picked to win.
Fair call. Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. I don't think you can make too much of a case for Masaki Doi on clay, I think, at the moment in this particular matchup. Next up, we have Annette Kontaveit versus #FlyWithCaro.
Fade. Wrong F word.
Yeah, Garcia was very kind to me against Pliskova the other week. So look, she's got some brownie points with me, but on clay, it's hard to go past Kontaveit in this particular matchup, in my opinion.
So I've actually taken Garcia plus 5.5 here. I thought that was about half a game to maybe a game too many. But when we get into the outright discussion, I'm a big Kontaveit fan this week. So I have Kontaveit picked to win the match, but I actually like Garcia, maybe plus 5.5. The plus 5.5 is a little expensive now. If you get 5, that's okay. But take that versus plus 1.5 sets. I think this is probably 2-0 Kontaveit, but I think there's a little value on the spread for Garcia here.
Yeah, I would agree in that. Kontaveit is the worthy pick to progress, but 5.5 games that's big. I think in this particular situation. So I agree with you on that play there. Next up, we have Pera versus Kuznetsova. Any thoughts on this match in particular before I grab the odds up and have a bit of a look?
It's pretty close to even from an odds perspective. This was a tough one for me because when I start to look at some data, Pera looks really nice on clay, but I know it's tough to look at any data on Kuznetsova because she's been injured the last year or so, and it's kind of still in comeback form. So maybe a lot of what I'm seeing from a data perspective isn't relevant. So this was a pass for me because I was pretty confused by the line based on what I'm seeing from like hold break percentages and things like that.
Yeah, it's a bit of a funny one, and I guess thinking through the particular matchup and how this will pan out on clay, I can kind of see the reasoning behind the money coming for Pera. I think Kuznetsova, she has been good on clay, but it's dropped off a little bit, I guess, over the last 1 to 2 years with injuries and other issues, and just not playing as much tennis. Thinking it through and thinking about kind of the Kuznetsova backhand and slice, I guess, that will be generated here at some point. It's going to go straight into the Pera forehand, which probably doesn't give the American as much of an issue as perhaps others would in this situation. I can kind of understand the money coming for Pera, and Kuznetsova did. She lost to Genie Bouchard in a. Look, she fell away in that third set. I think Bouchard took it 6-2 after they put a couple of tie breaks. So just looking at the price, I'd probably be inclined to make a plain punt have to be towards Pera there.
Yeah, I've got Pera picked. I'd really like to bet on her, but it just something doesn't make sense to me. So when stuff doesn't make sense, I tend to stay away. So I have her picked in the bracket, but I'm not betting on it as of yet.
She's probably sitting in that mid tier for me at the moment, where I probably won't go straight to her match in terms of looking through and previewing, but it's one that I'll probably take a look at a little bit later on. Now, I understand you have a play on this next one, don't you? Pavlyuchenkova versus Zhang.
Little itty bitty tiny play. This is a hold your nose play for me. Zhang has better data on clay. Pavlyuchenkova is not a good clay player. She very rarely plays. I think it requires a lot more work than she's willing to do at this point in a tennis match. At the same time, she hasn't really been playing. Now, Zhang has been playing, but terribly. So, held my nose, grabbed Zhang here on the money line for, I think, half a unit at a small number. The market's actually moved against me. I should have waited here. It's just one of those things. I think the number's wrong here. I think this match should be pretty evenly lined. So to get Zhang at, what is she sitting right now? Let me see. Tomorrow. Yeah, so Zhang right now is plus 190. I don't understand that. I don't know what Pavlyuchenkova has done to deserve to be that big of a favorite. Not that Zhang deserves to be favored, but she certainly doesn't deserve to be this big of a dog, in my opinion. How about you?
I think it's trying to find that balance, I guess, with this match, and looking at Pavlyuchenkova. You look at her form in Australia at the start of the year and her form on hard courts, and she's actually been playing pretty well. But when you kind of flip it back and go back over, she was very, very below average on play through 2019, and really hasn't done a lot since she won the Strasbourg final in the lead up to the 2018 French Open. So it's hard to make a case there, but I just don't see. You've got two players who neither seem to thoroughly enjoy play in any capacity. I just think there's so many other matches on the board here. I'm pretty comfortable kind of sitting this one out, but I can kind of see your point with making a small play there for Zhang to progress. I'm not sure what to do in terms of brackets, but I feel like neither of these two will be a significant challenge to Svitolina. So I'm not sure it's really going to
Yeah, I'm happy. You can whatever name makes more sense to you, go for it. Again, I've got a little bit on Zhang. I don't feel great about it, but here we are.
We'll go with Pavs. We'll give her a little win there.
There you go.
So
I've got a
Svitolina
middle.
has the bye, so she is through to the second round. So now if we head down to the bottom quarter, Belinda Bencic, who
When's the last time we saw Belinda Bencic play tennis?
It's been a little while. The last time, when was
Did
it?
she play in some of those Czech events, like those? I'm trying to remember. There was like those. They weren't quite tennis. It was like 2 sets and like a super tiebreaker kind of things. But the last official match in Tennis Abstract, which only looks at WTA level stuff, was Doha. So this is her first real tournament, if you will.
So she obviously made that decision to skip the US tour, which she did have. Was it a semi-final appearance at the US Open last year? So didn't really have a lot to gain in terms of points this time around, outside of making the final. So she decided to have a tilt here and go for a solid run here.
And those are the things I didn't like about the rules change that they made. It seemed to allow some of these players an easier opportunity not to go on, and maybe that was the point. But anyway, semi-final last year.
Her second round opponent will be Gerges or Kovanic, who I think Kovanic. I need to go back and do my recap for yesterday, but it looked like she did a typical frustration 3-set win when I opposed her, which seems to becoming a little bit of a trend. So that stings.
Yeah, I don't know what to do with this one. Like I was going to take Kovanic, but they're both -110 basically. So, ew.
I think I'm just gonna forget this one and move on.
Yeah, I generally like betting against Gorgas on clay, but not at this price.
Again, it's looking back. It's where do we haven't seen Gerges since she rolled her ankle with it. She did something in that grass clay exhibition-y tournament that weirdly ended up in an airplane hangar. I think we'll just kind of leave that. I maybe go with Kovanic for bracket purposes, but I think both of these players may struggle a little bit against Bencic in the second round anyway. Now, Fred isn't here, but we have one of his favourites here in Jelena Ostapenko, who's coming up against Magda Linette.
And another bet I've made.
Another one. Who have you gone with?
I've got Ostapenko here. I don't know how you don't take Ostapenko. She's the better clay player. She's been playing, she hasn't really been playing, but Linette has been playing barely. I grabbed her, I think it was at -125 or 1.8. I think that's a great price on her. I'm happy to step up and back our buddy's favorite player.
I will be jumping in as well, I think, on this one, looking at the prices. There is nothing on the hard court so far that made me lean towards or want to take Linette in any capacity, considering now we're switching over to the clay, which is arguably Ostapenko's best surface. She's won Roland Garros before. The only risk, as we said, is that she hasn't played a lot of tennis, and we don't know what her tennis is going to be like. Played a couple of those, like Estonia versus Latvia exhibitions, I think, and she ended up losing a match tiebreak to Contavate, I think, there, and lost to Pinetti, who was been playing relatively okay. I think I'm going to be going with Ostapenko here too at the price. Don't tempt me into backing any kind of extended games or alternate games or anything. I think I'm just going to kick off the Ostapenko and move on.
Yep, works for me.
Alrighty, next up we have Say versus Mertens, who is playing a pretty heavy schedule since the tour restarted. I know a lot of people got stuck into Elise Mertens after she lost in round 1 with Palermo, but she's been pretty solid since.
She's playing about as good as tennis as anybody, and once we get through this first round and focus more on outright prices, that is one of the names that I have circled. I like her to win this match. I don't necessarily see a great way to attack it based on the price, but think she advances here without too much trouble.
Now, I am heavily, as you say, I've already clicked Mertens through here. I made the mistake in 2018 of taking Say in this particular matchup, and Mertens won at 6-5, 6-2 in 58 minutes.
Shay's sneaky bad on clay. You'd think she'd be better on clay, but she is not. I think that it's funny. People don't understand how hard I think you have to hit the ball on clay to actually win points and things like that. And when she's on hard courts, she doesn't have to hit the ball as hard. But when she gets to clay, I think it's really tough for her to hit winners.
And the only case I could make for her here is that there's a fatigue component here with Mertens coming back from the US. Outside of that, it's hard for her, as you said, it's hard for her to win any kind of power battles on clay. The only way that she can really take advantage is against players who perhaps aren't great at movement and she can use a variety and drop shots quite well. I just don't see it working here.
This is also Shea's first match since February, competitively.
Yeah, so she obviously made that decision as well to not go through the US. So yeah, as King Kyrgios has said here in the chat, it's been 7 months since her last match. So it's hard to know. You're coming off, you've got a player having played no competitive tennis versus a player who's played a lot of competitive tennis. But I'm happy to pick Mertens from a bracket standpoint.
Love it.
Next. This one's made me think as well a little bit. We've got Alison Riske versus Bolsova Zadionov. Have you made a particular play on this one?
I did, but I got a nice early price on Bolsova. She was plus 110 when she opened. I think there was some 112s, maybe even 116s or 2.16, 2.13, if you will. Was really happy to grab her at plus money. I think now it's starting to settle around minus 115 or 1.87, if you will, on Bolsova, which feels pretty close to right. I'd probably make her minus 125 here, simply because Riske hasn't played much. She hasn't played well. She's yet to play on clay, and whenever she does play on clay, which is 3 to 5 times a year, if that much, she generally stinks. So really happy to oppose her here with someone who's come through qualifying in pretty good form.
Yeah, look, there's nothing in the recent form of Riske that makes me want to take her at that price in any capacity at all. I don't think. And I think she played a couple of those Charleston kind of green clay matches and got absolutely wiped off the court back then. And it's not a favourite.
Terrible.
Yeah, it's her movement. She plays such a flat stroke off both sides of the court. Her movement isn't good enough, I don't think, to work particularly well on clay. Often I saw of her in the US, transitioning over to the clay. I don't see it. If she was playing really well on other surfaces, then I could maybe make a case here. But I'm pretty happy to go with the qualifier to progress here.
Love it.
Alrighty. Next up, we have the qualifier in Blinkova against Jill Teichmann.
Love Teichmann.
Correct. I'm clicking her through.
Yeah. Price is no good for me on the match. I think you were thinking about laying the games, though.
I am thinking about it. Just I haven't found Blinkova particularly convincing since the tour restarted. I expected a lot more of her from her hardcourt run, and I just don't think the form that we've seen there is worth a play, considering what we've seen in the past from her on clay. I don't see when you go back through her wins, a lot of them have been at the lower level, and there's no real significant scalp. I'm just scrolling through the last couple of matches.
It's amazing to think she even qualified.
And that's the thing, she beat. And looking through qualifying, I think she got a bye in round 1 of a 2-round qualifying.
I was going to say it was either round 1 or round 2. She got a bye,
and then beat Vogeli in the second round, who is arguably probably worst in terms of court coverage and movement on clay. I just don't see, when you look at Teichmann, you consider how well she's played on clay since the start of 2019. She's won. I mean, you can tell the WTA Tour Twitter account otherwise, but she's won a tournament. Like she's shown. Yeah, and that's exactly the case. That wasn't her first quarterfinal in Lexington. She's shown that ability. She's shown that ability, and I think her lefty her lefty style and use of spin and angle, she's going to keep Blinkova running so much through this match. But I just don't see a way in here for the Russian.
No, this is Teichmann. I'm happy to take Teichmann. I think we're going to spend a lot of time talking about her later.
I think we will too. Now, last one of the first round, so we're getting there. Strycova versus Kudermetova. Any particular play here for yourself?
This is another one where I'm kind of a noodle. I got Kudermetova minus 130. She's minus 155 now. I still like her at that number. I think that's a good parlay piece. I think you could try to lay the games with her, maybe to take her to win the match 2-0. I tend to prefer to lay the games than take the 2-0, but I think this is a nice spot for Kudermetova.
Yeah, I tend to agree, and I think at the odds there, you got a good price there with with the Russian. So I probably wouldn't be getting too involved at the current odds there, but happy to pick her to go through here to the second round to have a little bit of a rematch from the Western and Southern Open with Carolina Pliskova.
Absolutely.
All right. Shall we flip back to the top?
Yeah, let's look back to the top quarter. Let's try to now start to pick apart the quarters, maybe start to look for some outright values here. Let's give the people some winners.
That's what we try and do. Now, Halep versus Sevastova.
Halep.
Agreed.
That was an easy one.
Giorgi versus Vekic.
I have Georgie here. I just like the way she's playing. I don't know that if she spent the break practicing or she didn't spend the break practicing, and that like her just advantage is she just never cares and she's just always the same and everyone's a little bit lower and maybe they'll catch up. But I have Georgie picked there. If you want to talk me into Vekic, sure, but they're going to lose to Halep.
Yeah, exactly. I think we can probably click Halep through before we get the opponent for her in the third round. Look, it's hard, I guess, with Georgie. I mean, she made the semi-final in Palermo last month, so we know that the form is there and her ability is there. When I'm thinking of things from this bracket standpoint, you could probably toss a coin amongst Georgie, Yastremska, Anisimova, and Vekic. Maybe, in this particular matchup, from what I've seen over the last month or so, I'd probably tend to go with Georgie as well there, I think. So we can continue on from there. Now, where was I? Here, aren't we? Now, if I just scroll one down, we have Rybakina versus Tomljanovic.
I've got Rybakina there.
And I would tend to agree, I think, with you on that one. Next one's a bit interesting. These two met last week, didn't they?
Yeah, this is a match where I'm going to talk myself into Putintseva when we get to the match, but from a bracket perspective, I think we have to take Martic.
I would tend to agree, I think, with this one as well. When you look at Putintseva, she is so good against those, big hitting players on clay because she can absorb. But I think the variety in the game of Martic might make things a little bit more interesting here. Plus a little bit of a revenge game, I think, for Martic coming off the US Open loss to Putintseva. And it was a bit of a delightful match there at the end.
Yeah, Martic isn't going to give Putintseva the mistakes that she needs to really win that match. She has the power, she has the experience, she has the consistency. Now, the next match to me is interesting because this is kind of a game theory pick for me. I'm actually going to bet on Rybakina to beat Martic, but I think from a bracket perspective, the safer pick is Martic simply because there's a little more uncertainty with Rybakina's first two matches. What do you think about that?
Yeah, look, I tend to agree there as well. I think and it's one of those ones that I'm probably going to sit back and watch Rybakina's first round match and then maybe look to jump into an outright or make a little bit of an opinion on that. But I think in terms of when you're looking at this from a bracket standpoint, adding in the fact that there's a first round bye there and a little bit less potential for the issues there for Martic, I think at this point that the logical play here from a bracket standpoint would be to progress Martic to meet Simona Halep there in the next stage.
So let's pause for a second. We basically just spent the last 5 minutes talking about how Halep's going to win this thing. She's about 3-1 to win the tournament. I think she was 4-1 a little bit earlier. That number looks like it's gotten beat up just a little bit. She's basically 3-1 everywhere. I am personally of the belief that you should never, ever in a million years bet anyone to win a WTA tournament at less than 5-1. Can you make a case to bet Halep here?
I think I can. I think when you look at this particular draw, I don't see anyone in this particular section really significantly troubling her based on what I saw from her in her last tournament. I mean, she looked incredibly good for long patches of those matches in was it Prague? I'm trying to remember.
I think it was Prague.
I think it was Prague that she played and won. I think when you look through it, and if you were to, I guess, parlay or multi up, Sevastova versus Sevastova, Giorgi, and Martic in terms of getting through this section, and then consider what's in the bottom half, I don't think you're going to be getting more than what you've just said there in terms of odds.
It's just, I think there might be value at 3-1. It's just really hard for me to wrap my head around it. I wish we had quarter prices. I bet she's probably like even money, maybe even minus like 110, 115 to win that quarter. I would love that. That would be fantastic. But yeah,
Fascinating. It's a fascinating matchup, Hallett versus Martic, if we do get to it.
I can't tell you it's a bad bet. It's just not a bet I'm going to make.
And it's something, and we'll go through the bottom half to it and have a little bit of a look to see if there's any other better prices there.
Yeah, as we start to go, I think we'll have some more. But that first quarter, I think, comes down to me. For me personally, it's whether you're going to take Halep or not.
Yeah, and I guess for me, when I would then look at this, and it's a bit like looking at a draw that has Djokovic in it, in that if you're looking for particular outright value, that's probably worth dropping down to the bottom half here, knowing that you're not going to meet Halep until the final. Now, we'll just scroll on down. Sophia Kenin versus Venus Williams.
Kenin.
Thank you. Now, this one interests me a little bit.
I'm going to let you pick. I have no idea what to do with this.
I don't know why I'm so keen on Kasatkina this week.
Let's do it for spread.
On we go. Kasatkina. And that would be interesting. Kasatkina versus Kenin.
Yeah, Kenin.
You're saying Kenin?
Kenin. Come on. That's enough. That's enough Kasatkina. Oh, come on. Really?
Can you just humor me for a second?
All right. What odds? Go for it. Come on.
What odds is Kasatkina at to win the tournament?
Not enough. Kasatkina, let's see. I am looking at Unibet right now. I am scrolling, still scrolling. Hold on a second, Kasatkina. Oh, not listed there. That's why I couldn't find her there. Kasatkina, I'm seeing 75 to 1. This is at Bookmaker, and Bookmaker tends to mirror Bet365. So I bet if you look at Bet365, you'll find 75 to 1 as well.
75 to 1. Let me think on that one for a little bit.
Wrong, but good for you. So, I don't know. Unless you know something, I don't. I think she wins her first match. I think she can beat Kerber, but then it's like Kenin, and I know the bottom section of this isn't bad, but like then she comes out and it's Halep.
Yeah, but I'd like to go into a final
6-1, 6-1.
We'll see. Let's keep going.
You get a chance to trade. You have a little different world with your Betfair selection, so maybe that's a trading selection for you.
We'll revisit that one in a little bit. Sloane Stephens versus Jabeur.
Maybe I'll feel better as we go down. Owns Jabeur just because I'm pretty sure she's going to win that first match.
I would agree, and yeah, Stephens, we did pick as an underdog in that first match, didn't we? Cocciaretto versus Konta.
I've got Cocciaretto in my bracket here. I think Konta played very poorly. I don't think she looked super healthy. This is going to be her first match on clay. She hasn't had any warm-up time. I was looking around at some of her social media stuff. I don't think she left to get here until a few days ago, so I don't know if she's been practicing on all those clay courts that are in Great Britain everywhere that we see all the time.
I feel from a bracket standpoint.
I'm fine taking Konta here for a bracket standpoint.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be betting on Cocciaretto here. Which again, I mean, if you would just actually, we'll finish this out and then we'll jump into the outrights for this quarter because I've got two I like.
Kiki Bertens versus Yvonne.
Let's finish the second quarter.
Oh, sorry. Yep. Jabeur versus Konta.
Jabeur versus Konta. I guess Konta. Just because again, I don't like Konta. I don't think she's going to play terribly well. If she beats Cocciaretto, it's only 2 matches for her to be here versus Jabeur, who could be hurt by then.
And you're going with Kenin versus Konta.
I am going with Kenin. So to jump into the outright conversation here, so do you think Kenin can beat Kenin?
Kasatkina, yeah.
Why?
Why not?
Oh, okay. So thank you for asking me a negative, which is literally almost impossible to argue against. I mean, name me one single thing Daria Kasatkina does better than Sofia Kenin.
Court coverage. I don't think.
What? I think by a little?
Yeah, I think enough to. I don't think. Kenin has the power to hit through Kasatkina on clay. I'd be interested to see. It depends on which Kenin turns up. Is it the Kenin that played Mertens, or is it the Kenin that we saw in Melbourne?
It's tough for me. I just don't see how we beat Kenin. I think that she's going to be mad that she played so poorly at the U.S. Open, and I'm not even 100% sure Kasatkina's even going to be there.
No, neither. I'm just.
Like,
what
if it's
feel
Kerber?
like
Could Kerber beat Kenin? What do you think about that matchup?
Depends if Kerber's at 100%, which I'm not sure she is. I think, probably the more ability from, Kenin's consistency is probably there in terms of we know that she's at 100%. It was just, do you make that case of, these losses that Kenin has had to Cornet and to Elise Mertens in conditions that probably suit her more than here. How does that correlate over? And is she perhaps struggling with being the hunted instead of the hunter since her Australian Open win? I know she had a good little run just before COVID struck. I think she won one of those indoor tournaments in Europe, but we just haven't seen a lot from Kenin on play. I mean, what's her biggest win? Probably beating Serena Williams at the French Open, was it?
Probably. I mean, you're right. Kenin doesn't have the best record on clay, but she's 18-1, which prices her at about a 5.25% chance to win this tournament. I think this is the worst quarter in the tournament. I think she's the best player in this quarter. She has a bye. She's 18-1. I just, again, I don't feel great about this, and I was somebody that was on her in the U.S. Open, so I'm still disappointed from that. But man, what a good quarter! I mean, again, if there's a price for her to win the quarter, I would bet that. But since I don't, I think 18-1 to win the tournament's good. And then the other name that I had circled, we talked about earlier, was Caccioretto. Now, I don't think that she can win the tournament. Circling back to your earlier discussion of, maybe more of a trading selection for Kasatkina. She's 500-1 to win this event at Unibet. That's a great price. I think she wins her first match. She's a chance to be competitive with Konta. And then Jabeur, Muguruza, Sloane Stevens, that could just be a total disaster, and all of a sudden you have 500-1 in the quarterfinals. So I'm going to take the value there, and I still like Kenin, despite how hard you're trying to talk me out of it.
And going back through and just talking to that Caccioretto 500-1, you look at the difficulty that we're having with so many of these matchups, that if we were to do 1,000 simulations through this and how many we would kind of send through, you would send Caccioretto through probably in more than a couple of those. So look, it's certainly a tricky little section here. I probably agree that Kenin is probably a good price there when you add in the factor of the first round bye. I would probably rather her to be on the other side of the draw to Halep to have a significant go here. I'm just not sure that, the fact that I'm kind of hypothesizing here that Kasatkina could beat Kenin. If you think about what Halep I think would do to Kenin on clay at the moment, I think that's a really difficult spot.
I feel worse. But I'm still going to do it.
We were saying Halep was going to beat Martic, didn't we?
We did. So it's Halep versus Kenin. I think we just take Halep because we're filling out a bracket. Again, I don't know if I'm going to bet Halep, but from a bracket perspective, I think we're going to pick Halep to win this tournament, so we might as well pick her to win this match, especially since we can't even agree on who's going to be there.
Correct. We're doing all right. I think this is going okay. Let's have a look. Have we got any questions? We've got one from Curious for you. 13-1 on a Kenin Halep semi. Would you take those odds?
That's interesting. I want to think about that one for a little bit because there's part of me that thinks, shit, that might be really good. I'm struggling to wrap my head around whether an 18-1 and a 4-1 outright put together should make a 13-1 final.
Semi-final.
Sorry, semi-final. Wait, what?
Never mind. Sorry. We'll continue.
It's really frying my brain. Yeah. Oh, they're 13-1 just to make the semi-final?
I don't know
Where
if
is that? Who would post such a thing?
I feel like he might be making that one up potentially. Otherwise, you could probably parlay both of those players all the way through to the semi-final. One of those open parlays.
I'm gonna. When this is done, I'm gonna sit down and try to figure out the math for like the rollover parlay. But that does seem like a really great number. If that's a thing that exists on planet Earth. You guys in Australia have all these goofy books, so he says he's not lying. I believe him. Oh, Bet365.
So it technically exists a little bit, but not really to a lot of people.
I'm gonna have to drive to New Jersey, which is a problem because it's 10:30 and I've been drinking for a while.
All right, well, let's move on. Okay, next up, so Kiki Bertens versus Yuan.
I guess you shouldn't ask me because I'm just going to get it wrong. But I want to take Yuan here. When's the last time Kiki Bertens played tennis?
Well, I feel like she hasn't played because she was kind of eyeing off the whole clay swing. But yeah, it's a tricky one. I think for the sake of the bracket, I think we need to take Bertens because we've already taken Yuan in a kind of coin toss in the first round against Herzog. But
I'm fine with that.
I'd be interested to see the odds in this particular matchup.
I will be betting against Kiki Bertens here and probably losing, so get excited.
Now, this one's interesting. Vondrousova against Swiatek.
This is going to be a lot of fun. I think Vondrousova's better. I just think she's the better player. She's a lefty. She moves better, but she's just played like hot garbage. I don't know if she's hurt. I don't know if she's disinterested. I don't know if she's just another 18, 19-year-old girl and is just up and down. And I don't mean that in a diminutive way, by the way. Just any human being, whether male or female, when you're 18 or 19 years old, you're basically insane. But at the same time, she's playing another like 18, 19-year-old. So I think this is going to be a lot of fun, but I don't know. I don't know what to do. Tell me. You pick somebody.
I already picked Vondrousova, so we've continued on. Kontaveit versus Pera. I'd be going
Kontaveit.
And considering we've already taken Pera in a near coin toss against Kuznetsova in the first round, I think we can continue through there. I've already taken it upon me to take Svitolina to beat Pavlyuchenkova, who we're not even sure will get through the first round based on your round one pick. So we'll continue on there.
Love
it. Bencic versus Hovinic. Again, from a bracket standpoint, we have to go because again we've taken kind of Hovinic with a coin toss first round into a underdog situation in the second round. I think Bencic.
Absolutely Bencic. I think we definitely have to pick Bencic here.
Oh, this is a match I'd love to watch. Ostapenko versus Mertens.
This is going to be a great match. We're going to pick Mertens.
I would love to get a really nice underdog price for Ostapenko though. Would love it.
It's going to be a fun match, that's for sure.
Yeah. Bolsova versus Teichmann.
Teichmann.
Agreed. Pliskova versus Kudermetova.
I hate Pliskova. I pick Kudermetova. If you don't pick Pliskova, I won't blame you. She'll be the favorite. She should win that match. Kudermetova already beat her though once this year, I think. At the very least, took a set off her and made her really, really think about it. And she will already have had a match on clay here to warm up a little bit. I like Kudermetova there. I will be betting on her. From a bracket perspective, though, I'll let you make the final decision if you want to go with Pliskova. No complaints.
Can I put something to you here?
Sure.
I don't reckon it matters who we pick because I reckon Teichmann beats him in the next round.
Love that.
So I'm going to do
that.
I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to look, just for the sake of, because Pliskova has the round one bye and kind of who we're playing through, I'd love to see Pliskova versus Teichmann. That would be great.
Oh,
yeah. Bencic versus Mertens.
Mertens. I just feel better that Mertens is going to be there. because I don't know about Bench's form, and I honestly think Mertens is a better clay player. From an outright perspective, she's 20-1 to win this tournament. I love that number. I think that's one of the best prices on the board.
Yeah. Mertens versus Teichmann.
Teichmann, another one I'm going to look at from an outright perspective. This one is interesting because as you look at some of the prices, Teichmann is actually at worse odds than Kudermetova, even though Kudermetova would have to beat Pliskova to even get to Teichmann. So I'm seeing Teichmann 80-1. That's another outright I like. I picked Teichmann just kind of to be cheeky, but happy to take Mertens there. I think Mertens is probably the better pick because I think her section's a little easier. So Mertens is probably the better bracket pick.
I would agree with that. That being said, if Mertens finds a way into trouble early against in a first round or even against an Ostapenko in the second round, I'd be interested to see what Teichmann's sitting at in the outright markets then. Because when we look to the next match in terms of we look at that third quarter, Kiki Bertens versus Vondrousova. I almost want to say Vondrousova just so you have to stop thinking about Kiki Bertens because I know it's not your forte.
I'll let you decide. At this point, I'm honestly not sure it matters because I think whoever comes out of this match is losing to Kontaveit. So I will trust your judgment.
So you have Kontaveit on top of Svitolina?
Yeah, Kontaveit is another outright I have. I see her at 28-1. I think that's fantastic. Given her quarter, given how good she is on this surface, really excited to bet her at that number.
So we then have a Kontaveit versus Mertens semi-final in the bottom half.
That's a coin flip for me. I think I like Mertens that match, but again, hypothetically at this point, I'm holding Mertens 20-1 and Kontaveit 28-1. I don't even care who wins. I'm just watching this for all the fun.
I guess that's from your perspective. It's really a matter of who's going to face Kasatkina in the final, then, isn't it?
Really, that's all it comes down to because it sounds like Kasatkina's making the final. Get excited, everybody.
I would say I don't like either of them late in tournaments. That they both pressure gets to both of them. I'd almost be inclined. I think I'm going to give the edge to probably Mertens.
I think Mertens gets the edge there. That would be my pick if I had to pick one.
So we would then have Mertens versus Halep, which is a replay of the Prague.
Or Elise Mertens. She is going to finish second this year more than just about anybody has ever finished second.
So we will take Halep in that one. That was a pretty close. It was a pretty contested match. So we have Halep coming out on top here, but I think from what we've spoken about across the last kind of half an hour speaking through it, that there's probably value in Teichmann. There's probably a bit of value, as you said, in Cocciaretto at the 500s, if that's still available. There's a little bit of value looking through Mertens and Kontaveit, and I guess the appeal of Mertens is that she's in the bottom half and away from Halep. And I'm having this weird kind of flyer trading situation on.
You have this big Kasatkina level. Really, we should have gotten spread on here so you guys could just really buddy up on this. It's
probably going to end up really awkward because I'm probably going to end up making a significant play on Kasatkina in the first round against Zvonareva, and she's probably going to lose, and I'm just going to look really silly. But hey, that's the beauty. It's a lot harder to preview than it is to review. So we kind of put ourselves in a position where you kind of put your neck out sometimes, and you know what? I'm probably going to make a little bit of a play on Kasatkina from an outright perspective, just for the fun of it with that one, just based on the draw as well. So just to list off, and I'll probably make a little bit of a list that I'll pop back under this stream tweet a little bit later. So what are your outright selections in order of your preference?
So I'll go from odds most expensive to least expensive. I've got a unit on Kenin at 18-1. I've got 0.9 units on Mertens at 20-1. I've got 0.66 units on Kontaveit 28-1, and I think there actually might even be a better number out there. So I got a bad number there. But Teichmann, I've got a quarter unit on her, 80-1, and then a tenth of a unit on Cocciaretto at 500-1. So that makes a little less than 3 units for me in total on the outrights.
Very nice. I don't think I I wouldn't disagree with too many of those, and I'll probably just have a little bit of a look around and see what other prices are available, I think, for the next period of time. So we've ended up with Halep there on top. I'm still kind of thinking about that price. If you had to kind of parlay or multi-up matches against Sevastova, Georgie, Markic, and Mertens, you're probably not getting 3-1, I wouldn't think, just based on their form. So, it's probably a little bit of value in her price there, considering we did pick her to, she will be the favourite in any match that she starts. I don't see any significant other value in that first quarter, definitely. Second one, could be thrown a little bit out in the open with, Rybakina or Kasatkina or someone of that ilk can find their way through the early rounds. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that all transpires. Do you want to have a quick fly through of the men?
Yeah, absolutely. But let me just pull that up here, and we can run through that quickly. I have the odds open in front of me, so I'll lean on you for that one just a little bit. But let's run through that. I'll go through the bracket with you. I don't think I have time to do all the first-round matches.
That's right. We'll bracket it up nice and quickly. If I can just get this back up on the screen. Hopefully I've got the right screen up. Alrighty. Now, good grief. Obviously, we're still going and trying to find out who the qualifiers are, which makes it a little bit difficult. But I think we can knock Djokovic through the first couple of rounds, can't we? I don't think Caruso or a qualifier is going to be knocking him off.
Yeah, it's weird they don't have the qualifier built in there, but I'm fine with that. So in the bottom section there, I assume it's going to be FAA that comes out of that group. I know on clay, Edmund struggles. I bet Kramitovic struggles. So do you think FAA could? What do you think there?
When I had a look, I think Felix and Philip were kind of, close to coin flip odds when I first had a look earlier. I think Felix has a lot better form on clay over the last 18 months, but a lot of it came in South America. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes getting to this point. Normally by this stage, getting to Rome and Roland Garros last year, he'd expended a lot of energy playing a lot of tournaments. So look, I think Felix is probably going to be a price that I'm going to be making a play out in this particular instance. Edmund versus qualifier. I mean, because it's the Masters 1000, there's another round of qualifying to come before these players will get placed. So we can't really make too much of a. We don't know who it's going to be, but we can pick Edmund through there. But I would agree. I think Felix is going to find his way through to meet Novak, and that'll be an interesting little match. But look, I don't think I want to be against Novak this week, particularly through the early rounds, considering what happened in the US.
This, from a bracket perspective, I think we take Djokovic here. When this match comes up, I'm going to be looking at Felix here. This could be one of those matches where Djokovic is just trying to find his form a little bit before the French. He gets a match under his belt, beating up on Caruso. And if Felix gives him fire in the first set, I wonder if he's going to try to dig deep and come back. So maybe once we get to that match, I'll bet Felix. But obviously, we're taking Djokovic.
Now, next little section's a little bit of an interesting one.
Yeah, this one's fun.
A lot of interesting players and a mixture of people who played in the US and people who skipped it. Stan Wawrinka obviously played through a couple of those Challenger tournaments. I don't think he lost. He ended up withdrawing, I think, with an injury.
Lost some sets, but those seem to be kind of warm-up moves on his part. So I think he's in form there. Happy to pick him in that match. And when's the last time we saw Kei Nishikori play? And I know ARV hasn't been very good in a little bit we've seen there. So probably Stan for 2 matches.
Nishikori came back last week against Kekmanovic and started, I think, 5-love in the first set and then just completely fell away. I don't think the fitness is quite there for him. And this is actually a little bit of an interesting match here. I think Ramos might actually have a bit of a chance here if he really extends this match out. Might be a case of maybe a Ramos 2-1, might be a nice value play there. But, I'm tempted to actually, I don't think Nishikori is going to make a big run here. So I'm happy to kind of move Wawrinka through these early rounds if you tend to agree there.
I do. I think that's a good call.
De Minaur versus a qualifier we're a little bit stuck with. To be honest, I think regardless of who that is, if Gael Monfils is near his best on clay, which I'm assuming he will be because he hasn't overdone it by playing a lot of tennis recently. I think Monfils is probably the play here.
I do. I think so. I don't necessarily know what he's been doing. I don't think he's been playing, but this is his surface. He loves this.
And I'd love to see a Stan Wawrinka versus Gael Monfils match. I think that would.
Right? Let's just do it. Let's make it happen. Let's really believe in ourselves.
And I don't actually know which way I'd kind of lean with that one. That's a really interesting one, and probably a tricky one, I guess, thinking about who the winner would be to come through here. Maybe Monfils. And the reason I say that is purely it's one of those ones that I feel like I'm looking at it right now. In the best of 3 arena in Rome, I'd probably go Monfils, but over best of 5 at a Grand Slam, I'd be going Stan. I'm not sure.
I think I just want to go with Stan because I've seen him play, and I know he's been warming up and doing something like that, and he just seems like the smarter, more consistent player. So I lean Stan there.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. We'll pop Stan through. Moving on down, Berrettini has the bye. We'll face the winner of Struff on a qualifier. I mean, it's going to be awkward if a qualifier ends up making a run here because we have no idea who they are. Interesting match there. Berrettini, Struff's been capable on play. His game is suddenly looking quite all-round across all the surfaces. So it's going to be a bit of an interesting one to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I think so. This little section of the draw sets up nicely for him, at least the first matches or so. I'm just trying to look down here. I mean, Struff doesn't scare me. Fritz doesn't scare me. I assume those guys wins those matches. Do you think Garin can beat Coric there?
I think so. I think he's got the more proven. Again, a lot of his
he's
play
actually probably even favored there, isn't he? I didn't realize he was a seed. Wow, good for him. I didn't know his ranking was that high.
I mean, a lot of his form comes through those South American. I think it was at the start of this year that Garin and Casper Ruud, I think, were kind of alternating who wins titles in South America. I'd probably end up saying that he would end up facing Fritz here, who, it showed last year that he was relatively capable on clay. I think he beat Diego Schwartzman and a couple of others in a couple of spots there, but I'd be kind of going with Garin, I think, to get through there. Who do we settle on for Berrettini versus Struff?
Berrettini. Right?
Yep, we can go with that. Now, this one is another first-round match I'm really interested to see. Karen Khachanov against Casper Ruud. Ruud was another
Based
one of
on
those...
the surface, don't you have to take Ruud here? Did Hatch not show you anything in the U.S. Open that makes you feel like he's the better player here on this surface?
I weirdly like Khachanov on clay. I know he's played... Did he reach a quarterfinal of Roland Garros, or was it a late... I'm trying to think... Familiar. I feel like he may have beaten or lost a really close 5-setter to Alex Zverev last year or the year before. Look, overall, in terms of kind of getting through this section, maybe go with Casper Ruud, but I'm interested to see how Khachanov goes for this particular tournament. And I think he really needs to start. As I said, Ruud is a little bit like Garin in that a lot of his tournaments come on South American play, so needing to get used to conditions here in Europe. Sonego versus Basilashvili. Now, this one's tricky. I mean, Basilashvili, he won at Hamburg the last couple of years. There's a form there, but he's been absolutely terrible since the tour restarted. We know, obviously, he had a lot of issues over the break, and I think he was arrested at one point for some other personal issues that are still ongoing. It's hard to see him bringing his best. Sonego, I think, outside of maybe Monte Carlo last year, hasn't been super, but it's an interesting match, I think, this one. In that, have you got the odds up there?
Let me see if I can find them. I don't have them up in front of me. I think you're right. This one could be tight. It should be fun. I don't necessarily know other players' games well enough to maybe pick a winner here. It looks pretty
Sonego
close
is minus 250.
I just think, honestly, whoever wins this loses the next match. So Sonego's minus 250?
Yeah, so I'd probably be looking at Basilashvili at that price, just because he did start to... He looked to take some steps forward against Delbonis last week. And I think there's a comment here from King Kyrgios as well.
Plus there.
To agree that he
I
did
think I take
some...
Sonego in the bracket, but you're right, the value's in Basher. I mean, if you're going to take Basher for the bracket, I think, again, whoever wins this loses to the winner of Khachanov Ruud.
Yeah. God, I'd be far more interested in this match if it wasn't on clay. Yeah, look, you got to go Cilic. I mean, to be honest, I think they're probably going to lose to Goffin anyway.
Right, so we'll just take Goffin there. I'm fine with that.
I'd probably take Rude out of this. Would you? Rude
I
versus
think so
Dolphin.
too. I kind of like Rude to win this quarter.
Yeah, I was just thinking that as we were kind of working our way through.
It sucks because if Khachanov wins the first match, he's probably in the same spot. But I like Rude. I think this sets up nicely for him.
Now, double ankle surgery, Fognini gets the bye here in the first round.
Yeah, can't wait to fade him in the second round.
Yeah, Kevin Anderson versus Humbert.
Don't we have to take Humbert because Anderson just will die before he finishes this? Will his knees explode before we get to the end of this?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go Humbert just because of I didn't see enough from Anderson to suggest that he's at full fitness here. Can I just do us all a favor? Can I pick qualifiers? I'm happy to take whoever that is.
Qualifier, good with that. Done.
Now, this one's a little bit interesting. Guido
this one could be fun.
Guido disappointed me a little bit yesterday. I won't lie. Was it yesterday or the day before when he lost to Feliciano Lopez? But that was obviously on a slightly faster clay court. I'm just trying to grab the odds up here. No one seems to be giving the odds here, which is really nice, particularly when you're live on a stream. Here we go. So look, I've got here as Paya is plus 100. So a slight favourite for Shapovalov. But how did Shapovalov go off such a... It was disappointing in a way that the way he kind of, made his way out of the US Open after, having a decent chance, in his 5-set loss to Carreño Busta. I just don't know if I've seen enough of Shapovalov on clay to win this type of lefty battle. What are your thoughts?
I kind of agree here. I like Paya in this spot. I think we can just move Paya forward there. So now we're at Humbert versus Paya, which feels weird as shit. I guess we take Paya. For some reason, we have Paya in the quarterfinals.
Can we get what are the odds on qualifier number 6 winning the quarter?
All right, so maybe we won't pace that out, right? But that's what we just did, isn't it?
Oh.
Are we going to take Humbert over Paya?
Oh, I don't know.
Maybe we just leave that one blank.
Do you reckon we can request a bet from a bookmaker? What are the odds on any qualifier to whoever has placed it against Query to make their way through to the? Because looking at the quality of some of the qualifiers, there is genuine potential within this. And that's looking at the list.
And that's some nice qualifiers in here. This is a great spot. I don't think this is a bad idea at all. Now again, once you get to the bottom half, things get a little ugly. But the top section, whoever this qualifier is, we're going to be betting a bunch. I think
because we don't know who it is, I think we have to go. I think I'm going to go Paya all the way through.
Let's do it.
And then Humbert.
You pick it. I don't want to talk about it.
Why do you make me do this?
Just click a name. You don't have to say anything. Click a name. Pick any name. It doesn't matter. We'll take whoever. Oh God, we have to take somebody who wins this match. Just click whatever names you want. I don't really care. These 4 names. What a terrible section. Nishioka. I guess Nishioka just wins 2 rounds.
I mean, Kekmanovic
freaking Masters.
I don't know. Kekmanovic's look pretty good across.
I'm fine with that. Again, saving time.
I mean, he's just won. I mean, he just won the Austrian tournament, so it depends on how quickly and how well he goes backing up here. But look, weirdly, it's kind of a little bit of a. I mean, yeah, Nishioka is just not great on clay. I think I have nightmares about Nishioka because I backed him to beat Del Potro last year, and that's still in the back of my head. Maybe Nishioka is probably not the type of player you want to play off a full week of tennis, and maybe we could get him there to lose to Nishioka. Dimitrov, I'd probably go to beat Nishioka. Again, though, I don't get a great deal from Grigor across 2020. Benoit Paire versus Yannick Sinner. I did notice that Benoit Paire isn't thrilled that he's playing on Monday after having to spend 14 days quarantining in New York for playing cards. You have to go with Sinner just purely off preparation standpoint. think
I'm fine with that.
Sinner versus Tsitsipas would be a bit of fun.
You got to pick
I'd-
Tsitsipas, but that is going to be fun.
I'd love to know, like, I'd love to sit down and talk to Tsitsipas and just like, how do you reckon he feels watching what unfolded in the US Open final tonight? Going, it really probably should have been me.
He and Medvedev should have lots of long time thinking about what the hell happened tonight.
Just a mess.
I think we can take him to
Alrighty.
win this quarter, though, at this point, don't we?
I think so. Sorry, get going. I think he should be too strong for Dimitrov there, I would say. And then if we move on down, Diego Schwartzman has a bye, qualified 7 against John Millman. Looking at the qualifier list, they probably all have a decent showing here, but we'll go Millman for the sake of having a name there. He's not as bad as Cleary on clay. Dan Evans versus Hurkacz.
I don't know what to do with this. Have they ever played on clay, either one of them?
As in played each other?
Just in general. I assume they have, but
They do. I mean, Evans
I can't remember the last
solid.
time.
Evans looked pretty solid in patches last year on clay. I think he's able to use his slice a little bit to patch over his movement deficiencies on the surface.
I think of him as a better player, but I just don't know what to do on this surface.
Yeah, I think for the purpose of this, I'd probably move Hurkacz through.
I'm fine with that. I trust you there. I mean, they're losing to Rublev, right?
Yeah, I think so. It depends on who qualifying number 8 is, but we'll go Hurkacz through, we'll go Rublev through. Hurkacz is pretty, I mean, his game is one of those players coming through that's pretty good on every surface without being magnificent on every surface. I actually wouldn't mind. I think it'd be a decent showing here against Rublev, but just for the sake of the bracket, because Rublev will arguably have an easier first round as well, I think we can push Rublev through here. Then we'll put Schwartzman through. And look, would you go Diego over Rublev?
I would.
I think it's one of those ones with Schwartzman. He burnt me a couple of times last year against players who he got kind of just blown off the court by some power players. But looking at this draw, he'd want to make the most of this one, I would imagine. Yeah, Raonic versus Manarino on clay doesn't strike me as something I'm not gonna watch that one. Let's go with Milos.
Sure.
Lajovic against a qualifier, probably qualifier number 9. We'll probably get through there on Lajovic's recent form and take away the whole Monte Carlo effort from last year. This is the bit I love. I love that Carreño Busta gets a bye through the first round because he was a semi-finalist at the US Open. And as his reward for having a round 1 bye, he copped Rafael Nadal off 6 months of no tennis in round 2.
Nadal, who is even odds, by the way, to win this tournament for the first time. He's going to play tennis in a year. Not a year, but 8 months.
He hasn't played since, what was it, Acapulco. Look, yeah, you have to roll Nadal through this whole section here. I don't think Raonic has beaten him on clay unless he serves about 48 aces. I don't see Carreño Busta, probably a little weary Carreño Busta coming off a long Grand Slam, getting anywhere near him. Diego Schwartzman, maybe. I mean, I don't see it for the bracket, purposes of the bracket. I think we have Nadal coming out of there. So that would be Nadal versus, say, Tsitsipas.
Probably have to pick Nadal, but what do you think about Tsitsipas? I'm seeing 14-1 to win the tournament.
I think when you look at that quarter, I think it's probably, if you could get him to win the quarter, that would be fantastic. But yeah, look, maybe not bad. I mean, again, I think we saw with Nadal last year that players are starting to get to him a little bit in terms of the best of 3 format on clay. That we saw a couple of losses there, but it's a different battle, obviously, matching him over best of 5. You can maybe make a case. It looks like there's a comment here in the chat that we've got a Nadal and Tsitsipas semi-final at $5 odds, which is something we can maybe consider and have a little bit of a look at. I'm curious as to what Nadal wants to win this week. I mean, if the French Open started next Monday, I'd be a little bit more worried. But the first week's qualifying, I think so. He'd still have a week off in between. I think Nadal needs some matches on court considering he hasn't played. So look, I think for the sake of a bracket, we'll go Nadal. But I think Tsitsipas is one to keep an eye on because, again, I think of the players coming through, Tsitsipas has shown some pretty decent quality on each of both clay and hard court. So look, I think he'd love that challenge, and it'd be interesting to see what happens there. If we go back to the top, where was our qualifier? Is he still going? I think we got a bit sidetracked.
No, we have Casper Ruud playing. Oh wait, no, sorry, we haven't gotten up there yet.
So we had Casper Ruud playing the winner of Berrettini and Gurin.
That's right.
I'm gonna go Gurin.
Yeah, I think Guerin's the winner there. So So it seems like we found a bunch of value here because Ruud is 200 to 1 to win the tournament, and Guerin's 100 to 1 to win the tournament, and that's our quarterfinal.
Yeah.
I don't feel bad about it. Do you?
No.
Now I'm going to put a little bit on the two of them. 100 to 1, 500 to 1. I mean, what the? Or sorry, 200 to 1, 100 to 1. What the hell?
I will go. I'll take Christian to go through.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I mean, whoever it is loses to Djokovic or Wawrinka. I assume it's Djokovic. Yeah.
I'm going to assume Djokovic here. It'll be interesting. I'd much rather see this in a Grand Slam, to be honest. I think this would be a little bit. I know it's a Masters month, but this would be a bit.
I actually think that this sets up nicely for the double final. I bet they see each other here, and then they see each other in the French Open.
So we've got Novak versus Christian. We're going to go Novak.
Yeah. So it's Novak versus Rafa.
What an exciting! I've just had a really fun week not building up to this particular matchup, and it comes back again so soon.
Yeah, Rafa would be my pick here, but if you want to talk me to Djokovic, I'm fine there too.
I think from a bracket standpoint, you have to go with Nadal, but I think overall, there is the potential maybe for a nice price on Novak in the final. This is that bracket versus value kind of juggle that you have to play. So we would then be sending through as the winner as Nadal. So that's not too bad.
No, I mean, from an outright perspective, again, there's some value in Guerin and Ruud because they're at huge numbers. Maybe Tsitsipas around 15 to 1. I mean, the Nadal price, he's actually minus 134 at the one book I'm looking at. He's plus 105 at the other one. Djokovic is 2 to 1 or 2.2 to 1. You can't bet either one of those, can you?
No. And I think
Wawrinka's 25 to 29 to 1. That's maybe an okay price, but he's in Djokovic's quarter, so like whatever. It's just tough.
And I think, as we mentioned before, the qualifying list is quite strong here. So there's a couple of little spots there where qualifiers could make a little bit of a run, particularly that one that comes up against Sam Querrey. So I feel like that Querrey Shapovalov section could be a little bit vulnerable, especially with, Fognini, Anderson from there in there as well. So I think that's what makes Tsitsipas in his price look a little bit more manageable here, because it would be a relatively comfortable journey as far as a Masters 1000 goes in terms of getting through to the semi-finals. But it is hard to go past Nadal and or Djokovic in any capacity here, I think. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Alrighty. Well, I think that basically covers covers off everything that we really wanted to touch on for today. And we've just managed to wrap that up in under 2 hours. I think we've done okay there. Obviously, if anyone wants to find where your plays are at the moment, where's the best place for them to look?
You can find me on Twitter at _Noops. I've posted everything there. They should be in tweets. You can also find a link in my profile there to go to my log so you can see everything that I've had as well as everything I've got.
And I will progressively put up some previews across the afternoon, so over the next kind of 4 to 6 hours for day one from Rome on the men's and the women's side. And I might put up a little bit of a discussion or a summary, I guess, of what we saw as some value here. If I don't think we have any questions, I think that we've left off to there, so we might wrap it up for now. Thank you to everyone who's tuned in on either Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, Twitch. I think we're on everything at the moment, so we may as well just throw it out everywhere and see if there's any interest there. Again, thanks for tuning in, and I think we can do these a little bit more frequently in the back end of the year as the schedule becomes a little bit more favourable. I guess I don't need to get up at 1 a.m. for the start of the European thing, so we can try and maybe get a couple more live streams that work from a time zone perspective over the next couple of weeks as we lead into the French Open qualifying that starts next week, and the main draw, I think, just under 2 weeks from now. So
tennis is back, baby.
It is back, and it isn't going anywhere. There's lots to cover, and we will do our best to preview as much of it as we can. So thank you, everyone who tuned in at some point over the last couple of hours. And as always, if you have any feedback, constructive criticism, not so much the other criticism, we're not really as keen on that. But if you do have any
feedback to yourself,
or if you found it helpful, please do let us know, and we can hopefully keep doing this a little more as the rest of 2020 unfolds. So we will leave it there. And we will chat to you all soon.